And we are on air.
Okay. Excellent. Hello, everyone.
There's a huge discussion going on in the chat.
Vance did toss a question in there. Well, a couple questions. One, the repeated question of how the heck do I know that you guys are on?
Well, if he figures that out, I would really love to know myself.
It would be really, useful. We used to have calendars and schedules.
If you want to gamify IHAQ, how would you do it? Oh, gamify. That's not my... Who knows how to gamify?
What do you mean by gamify?
I don't know. It's Vance's question. If you want to gamify IHAQ...
Points and badges and...
Probably. All that conference bingo gamify is all I know about. When they stand up and they're gonna create a maker space and they're gonna gamify education, everything.
What's the ESPN show where they have panelists? Shoot, I was on a parody of it and I should know this.
I don't know. I don't know, John.
Where there's a host and he like throws questions at the panelists and then they get points based on their responses, and I mean you could gamify it. It's just you could get audience participation so that they're tweeting or somehow using some interface to give points to different contestants, and I don't know. It sounds like work, actually.
It does, and it also goes back to the old to what end? Like, why would we be doing that for? To make it
engage the audience. So you have a live audience that's actually right. So you throw out a topic, and each of the four of us then gives our take on or opinion on whatever the issue is, and then the people who are in the chat room then vote for one of the four people, and then they get points, and somebody wins at the end, and just fun.
Okay. Do we want that as our topic, or do we want our other one as the topic?
What was the other one? Innovation.
The ethics of innovation.
Ethics of innovation.
I don't really. It has never stopped me, but I've never really thought about it. But it's kind of interesting to think about.
Well, the reason we didn't do a show last week is because Dave couldn't do it without Jen. So I'm not even going to talk about this unless Madrill's in the room.
I think I saw that in the Skype chat. I wasn't exactly sure what he meant, but I think that'd be kind of it. You guys want to chew on that? I'll chew on that.
Well,
Jeff doesn't want to do it without Dave because it's Dave's question.
Yeah.
All right, you got a question, Jeffy?
Where's Dave?
There's the question. There's the question.
All right, I'm gonna let's see. Can we find? Isn't he on that Twitter Space thing a lot? I'll send him.
He's out of the hospital, right?
Yeah, no kidding. He has something on today. He did his crazy thing. What do you call it? His CrossFit?
CrossFit.
Mm-hmm.
What do they call it, though? Like it's CrossFit on steroids, which is hard to imagine.
Did you see the video on Facebook, Jeff? Of that ridiculous amount of weight? Like comically large.
He
did. Dave was lifting?
Yeah.
215.
The clean and jerk stuff.
Yeah, 215 pounds. There's a video of it. If you go to his top of his Twitter feed, you can see it there. All right, I'm going to say at Dave Cormier. I'm going to give him an all caps.
All caps.
Where are you? Okay.
Oh, I had been logged into a different Skype account. I had missed a couple days of Skypes.
You didn't miss a whole lot.
No.
What do you mean? Oh, you just, I haven't been
He
on
has
Skype
two
for like
Skype
several
accounts.
weeks.
I have
Oh,
more than two.
I
He has
And
see.
several Skype accounts, only two of which are in this chat.
And I had to call someone on a phone, and I needed Skype credit, and so my CareerBridge one has a bunch of unused credits, so I had switched.
All right, well, how
I'll
about
get
if
your
we talk
credit back after.
How about if we do this? You both are starting back this week in your new roles. Would you like to share, since you allowed me the opportunity to share, would you like to share what you're doing and pose any IHAQs you may have as you prepare and plan for your new
Sure.
roles,
I could do that.
classes,
Okay.
semesters? Huh?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Fine.
All right, you want to start, Jeffy?
Where are you guys? There you are.
No, you start the show. You do that very
Okay,
well.
what is the day today? Today, I'm going to do it as we are sitting here in Chicago, Sunday, July 20th. And it's the 14th IHAQ?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, ready? Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to IHAQ number 14. Today is Sunday, July 20th, 2014, here in Chicago, Illinois. My name is Jennifer Madrill.
This is John Schenker in Stowe, Ohio.
And this is Jeff Lebo in Busan, Korea. As far as we know, Dave is still recovering from an extraordinary CrossFit endeavor in recent days, but he's not here. So our first question is, where is Dave? And we have no answer.
We asked the internet didn't respond, so.
And we did actually ask him a question on Twitter. Where are you? But no, we have a unique opportunity. Both Jeff and John are heading back to work after brief breaks from their normal routines. And so I thought it would be kind of interesting to hear what's on their agenda at John at his school and Jeff at the classes he's teaching. And maybe they have some IHAQs, some questions that they would like to pose and have us all chew on. If nothing else, we can hear what they're doing that's cool, neat, and innovative. Take it away, guys. Share.
Go, Jeff.
I will also just mention that we've been off for several weeks, and things have happened. Conferences, ISTE happened, and Future of Ed happened, and lots of stuff has happened. Jen's gone camping. John went to Boston Pops on July 3rd. So if there's any updates, we can deal with those as well before we dive into what's ahead. I wanted to post a link about Peggy George, the internet's #1.
I love Peggy.
Everything. Peggy George. They did a what did they call it? Peggy George Punked or something like that at ISTE. That was kind of a Peggy George appreciation show, and I will toss a link into the chat room. But it was a very nice kind of Peggy George, this is your life, and a big appreciation thing for her.
I thought all of ISTE was that every year.
There it is. Look at that. Very cool. We're looking at the link Jeff just put in the chat room. That's what we're looking at. And by the way, the chat room can be found at where? Where's probably the easiest place when we talk about? I was thinking about that the other day. We mentioned this chat room all the time.
Go to edtechtalk.com/live.
You can find the chat room. Yeah. All right. All right. So hop in, guys. What are you doing? What are you doing? What's happening? What's on the agenda for the new semester?
Let's have John start with that.
I can start with that. We have been, I work in K-12 environment, and we have about 4,100, 4,200 students in 6 schools, public school district in a suburb of Cleveland. And we have been, over the last few years, buying computers more than we had previously. And we've really been focusing on a places to people initiative where instead of putting computers into places, classrooms, computer labs, offices, that sort of thing, we're getting more to the point where we're issuing them to people. And so just like with telephones, the telephones don't belong in places anymore, they belong with people. Computers are really going in the same direction. And so we've been purchasing a lot of mobile devices, and we have reached the point where we have more computers now than we have students. And in a year, 1 year from this fall, we will be launching a one-to-one program for grades 1 through 11, where we will issue computers to those students. And at different grade levels, we'll manage that in different ways, but essentially starting in 6th grade, rather than a kid going to every classroom and using a computer in that classroom or having access to one, we'll issue them to the students. And so this is done without the students having to go out and buy them. It's not a BYOD initiative. It's not a case where it's just on the supply list and they're expected to go buy it. This is supplied by the school, and it belongs to the school and is supported by the school. And it's a huge step because it really puts us at a point where the technology does finally become ubiquitous. And Chris Lehman talks a lot about it being oxygen, right? That it is necessary, invisible, and ubiquitous, and that we have to stop talking so much about technology and focus on using it. And my job really is to provide the technology and to make sure that it's working and that it meets the needs of our teachers and our students and our other stakeholders. And so this year really is all about what do we need to do in the next 12 months to be ready for every kid to have a computer all the time. And that's what my focus is for the coming year. And one huge piece of that is infrastructure. What are we doing on the wireless front? How are we making sure that we have enough density for the number of wireless devices we're going to have? Because don't forget, everybody also has a phone, and we have a lot of other technology as well in addition to this project. So working on the infrastructure, internet access, those kinds of things is a big piece of it. Support is certainly a need. That it was one thing when people checked their email, at the end of the day, and that, if they didn't have internet access, then they just picked up a piece of chalk and they moved on. If technology really is an integral and indispensable part of what we do in our schools, then it has to work all the time. And so meeting those demands of every student having a device on the support front is going to be a challenge too, and so we're working on some strategies to put in place for that. There's certainly a lot of policy stuff that we're working on, and what happens when a computer breaks? What happens when a student pushes someone's books out of their hand, and that includes a laptop in it, and it breaks on the floor? What do we do about filtering? What do we do about in terms of monitoring how students are using these? So there's a whole bunch of things on that front, but really the biggest thing we're focusing on this year is professional development. What do our teachers need to get them ready for this paradigm shift? And so that's really the part where I'm spending most of my attention and most of my focus, at least over the last couple weeks, this summer, just trying to get all of those pieces in place for the professional development. And I guess my question, if there's a question after all of this, is how do I get my teachers to be intrinsically motivated for professional development for this type of stuff? And we want to do a lot with personal learning networks. We certainly want to do a lot with blended learning, with cloud-based services, with all of the technology stuff, but really more on the pedagogy stuff, on how does instruction change, how do we incorporate this tool as a learning resource for our students, and then how do we get our teachers excited about the training and excited about learning together and fostering this new world of collaborative learning that we want in our schools. So that's sort of the things I'm struggling with.
It's really actually making my head kind of hurt, because right away I'm thinking, oh gosh, I'll take it home, and Dad will go, gosh, I don't have a computer, so I think I'll borrow this for work for 3 days or what. They have to check it in and out every day, or what are the kind of terms they use?
Admittedly, we're doing all of this backwards, right? One of my mantras last year was feed the hungry, right? Don't give stuff to people and then tell them to use it. It's wait for them to ask for it and have them come to you and say, these are the things that we need. And it hasn't worked that way for a lot of reasons, some of which is political and some of which is budgetary. But basically what we're doing is we're hijacking our textbook funds. And so rather than spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on replacement textbooks, we're still spending money on textbooks, but reducing the amount of money we're spending there, and then sidetracking a lot of that to pay for things like laptops. So it's a case where it's much more top down than I would like it to be, and many teachers are on board with this, and many teachers have carts of laptops in their classrooms now, and so those will just be converted to the students have them all the time rather than there's a cart in the classroom. But there are many others that are dragging their feet on this, and how do we? I guess the struggle is, how do we get everybody to buy in and everybody to be excited about it, and really to transform education, not just do substitution.
Yeah, I think that we've talked about this so many different Sunday nights here, is the whole tech integration in the K-12 space, or whatever you want to call it, through higher ed, or through the corporate world. And it's like you said, it's like a student. How do you make a student excited about learning? I mean, it's the it's the $1,000,000 question, and it usually boils down to, as you said, they have to be hungry for it. You have to set up conditions, and that they see the value and go, just inherently are like, this is cool, I want more, tell me more, let me see more, versus, as you're saying, it being a top-down. And it sounds like, from what you're saying, because you had the funds, why waste an opportunity? Let's roll this out, right?
Well, it's part of a much larger initiative. It's something we've been working on for several years, but it's not. I don't know that across the board they recognize, they being our teachers, recognize the fundamental shift that is possible in how we educate students. A lot of times we look at technology as a replacement for something that we did previously, and so I've seen a lot of classrooms where a teacher is using a projector and a smartboard to do worksheets with kids, because it just replaced the overhead projector. And so now, our kids can do their worksheets on their laptops at their desks, and we don't have to all do it. And you have to move beyond that and think about things in new ways. And so that's the struggle, is to get them to challenge them to rethink what is possible.
Is there any curriculum component to the initiative? And you mentioned you're taking textbook funds. Like, are there online materials instead of?
Oh, yes, and there are curricular materials that are being purchased, and actually have been over the last few years. And that's how this started, was when we did science adoption a couple years ago. Instead of spending all this money on science books and materials, we spent a little bit of money on science books and materials, and some money on laptops for science classrooms. And then we did the same thing for math classrooms. We did the same thing for English classrooms. And pretty soon you get to the point where kids going from class to class to class, and there's a cart of laptops in every class, and we're a year out from it making more sense to give the laptops to the kids rather than having them in every classroom that the kid visits. So that's sort of how this has rolled out, is by subject area, they've been doing this all along. And that's at the middle school and high school level. At the elementary level, it's been a little bit different, but we do have, at least this year, we'll have a cart of laptops in every second and third grade classroom, and then one on every fourth and fifth grade team. And so we just have to fill in first grade next year, and the rest of the 4-5s, and then the rest of the 6 through 11s.
I just want to say too, John, part of it is, I'm thinking back, this is going way back, like in the early part of the 90s, when I first started working for a company in New York. I shared a workstation with the person who sat behind me in a cubicle, and we literally would turn 45 degrees and use it, and then they'd say, "Can I have it now?" And so, I remember at the time going, well, what a waste to give everybody a computer, because it just will sit there empty. The chair will sit there empty most of the day anyway. And so, it's not too much different thinking then, well, once I got a computer in front of me that I had at my disposal, and then it became a laptop that I could take home. I mean, once you have it, you find reasons to use it. So,
but they paid, what, $2,000 for that computer, and not $400.
Right.
I like to draw the analogy of when I was in third grade. On the side, I can remember sitting in my language arts classroom in third grade, and over by the windows, in every classroom, right, they've got bookshelves under the windows, the two little shelves, and there was a whole shelf of dictionaries. And whenever we needed to look up a word, because we needed to know how to spell it, or we needed a definition, or we needed to know how to pronounce it, we would go over to the bookshelf, and we would get a dictionary. There's a whole classroom set there. We'd take the dictionary back to our desks, and we could look up the words that we needed, and figure out what's spelled incorrectly because we didn't have the little squiggly lines that automatically showed up on our notebook paper. And we would use a dictionary and then we would put it back. And nobody complained if we went like a whole week and didn't use the dictionaries, right? And it wasn't a dictionary, it wasn't like a set of dictionaries on a cart and the teacher had to reserve it because a week from Thursday we're going to need those dictionaries from, from 1 to 3 o'clock because we're ready. They were just in the classroom. We used them whenever we needed to use them. And we're at the same point with technology. It's there. It doesn't have to be used for every lesson in every class, in every subject area, at every grade level. But there are lots of places where it's appropriate. It's a lot more appropriate to all of the things that we teach in school. That much more appropriate than the dictionary even was. And we just need it to be there and be used when it makes sense to use it.
In Mrs. Smith's 8th grade math class, is she going to say, okay, we're dealing with trigonometry today, open your books to chapter 8, or she's going to say, go to coolmath.com/trigonometry?
Right. What I'm worried about is that she's going to go to chapter 8 on the laptop because that's how they get to chapter 8 now. And so that, that's the concern is, okay, our math book is online, so we can use the laptop to go to the math book. And so we're still doing, section 8.4, properties of right triangles, instead of looking at real world problems and trying to, find solutions to those problems. It gets very difficult to get away from the direct instruction that is textbook driven, especially.
How much is that stuff out there? How much have other schools kind of built up a foundation of this?
I mean, we're getting it from the textbook companies, right? We've licensed that content, so we have it. In terms of open stuff, it varies widely. There's a lot of open content available for high school courses. There's much less for elementary, middle school courses. When you get to the junior, senior level through sophomore in college, I think that's kind of the sweet spot where there's a lot of open content. You can find a basic Western Civ class or freshman college English class online. It's much more difficult to find 7th grade science that does basic foundations and isn't like physics or chemistry or something like that. So yeah, some of those resources exist. I think we do in K-12 generally do a pretty poor job of developing high quality resources ourselves rather than just taking what is given to us, and B, sharing that stuff. So I think
what is
that's
the
one of
mandate
the
given to the teachers? Like, you guys are saying, okay, you're going to have, every student's going to have a laptop. How have the curriculum parameters changed? It's still, okay, this is the textbook, these are the materials you have to cover. Is there any other layer of anything?
I don't think it's not couched in a this is what you have to do sort of tone. It's more of a here is another resource that's available for you. The one thing that they've done correctly in my I shouldn't say it that way. One thing that I really think, because I don't want it to sound like they're not doing anything right. One thing that I really like is that when they have purchased these new resources, they have not allowed the teachers to keep the old resources. One of the problems I had with my daughter's school, which is not the school where I work and not the school where she goes anymore, but when my 10th grader was in 5th grade, she had 2 books for every subject. She had, here's the math book that the Board of Education has adopted, and here's the old math book, which is the one I still teach out of. And she had that for every single subject. She had 2 books because they didn't make the teachers get rid of the old stuff. And so because their lesson plans were done and they were, counting days to retirement, and again, this is a different school, it's different teachers, but that was a problem in that school. In this case, the teaching models are changing. The content has certainly changed, especially in math and language arts because of Common Core. So I think that the teachers are receptive to looking at things in new ways, and from at least from the content perspective, they're changing the way they're teaching or what they're teaching. It's just, how do we make sure that it's not simply substituting technology for print and actually engaging the students and the teachers to get the most out of this.
I think there's so many layers to what this rollout's going to be, and I just totally also envision some teachers are going to say, oh, every time they fire up their laptop, I can tell they're on, whatever, Instagram or whatever, and even if you're
Right.
filtering it, blocking it, whatever, they're going to find some way to. And so I can even imagine saying, okay, classes, everyone put your laptops away so we can get down to business.
Sometimes you do
I'm
that,
sure there's
right?
going to be layers of that you're dealing with, and, just all of it. But, we were talking. You were saying before we just always talk about this, that you roll out a technology and you somehow think. I was just watching just before I came up here. 60 Minutes had the repeat of the pledge. It's the billionaire pledge where the Gates and Buffett and all the billionaires are going to donate at least a half of their wealth, and it's the whole Gates Foundation thing. It's like, okay, if we just throw a whole bunch of technology at this problem, we're somehow going to fix it. And there's just so many layers to the issue that you just can't. Well, certainly we're not going to cover it in 30 minutes here what the answer might be. But I think it's all the things we've talked about. It's the logistics of making sure they don't drop it, and that are you giving them access to enough stuff that they can even get something done, or if every time they try to get on something they're hitting roadblocks, that's going to be an impediment to their desire to keep trying. And as you said, it's the whole adoption, the diffusion curve, and you've got laggards who we're going to take a long time, and you're going to have those that are gung-ho, woohoo. And so it's the whole change model. You get those that are excited about it to try to push the ball forward and get others excited. But yeah, you're in for a fun year.
Well, and I mean, I guess the good news is we're still a year out, right? I mean, we have.
What do you mean a year? I thought they're there.
Parts still, but it's next year when all of this happens.
Well,
this
I
year
thought
we
you
do
had the
have.
computers.
Well, we have a lot of the computers, but they're in carts. They're not. The kids aren't taking them home.
Okay,
yet,
so they're not
right?
taking them home yet. I misunderstood that
Not,
part. Okay.
Yeah, not for another year, right?
Okay.
So there's time yet. There's there's enough technology that they can do most of the things they want to do. It's just that we haven't taken that last step of everybody has one all the time. Now it's many teachers have them, but not all of them.
And your initial question was, how do you intrinsically motivate? And I don't think an other can intrinsically motivate anyone, but how can you develop that kind of incentive?
We're putting together all these plans for professional development, and we're using badges, and we're doing all kinds of different approaches, and taking a multi-pronged approach to we need to do some really basic technology stuff, but we also want to focus on learning, so we don't want to be all tool-based, and we're dealing with all of that stuff. But the question comes down to, I can't get release time for all of my teachers to go to as much training as they need to go to. So if we're doing it face-to-face, then some of that's going to be off the clock. It has to be, because our community would be upset if we pulled the teachers out of the classroom that much. And then at the same time, we want to do some stuff that's blended. We want to do stuff that's online, but we need teachers to be engaged and interested enough to do it. And it's hard to do. I don't believe in paying people to learn things. I think that's a bad model. I think that I like to offer resources for free that allow people to come engage with content and engage with each other and build learning communities, which is why I do this and several other things. But I don't think it's a good model to say, okay, we'll pay everybody to come in and do this training, because then they're there to collect the check, and how do I sign in and make sure that I get all my hours? And that's the wrong approach. I want them to be really excited about whatever this is that we're offering, and I need to find a way to make it relevant for them so that they're excited about it.
And the thought that occurs to me is showing examples and modeling. Get Darren Corapatwa in there, or just show him, the math teachers and stuff and what he's done.
Right.
Maybe have hangouts. Ask Darren to join a hangout and have a few teachers on board. And because this has been around long enough that there are examples, I would hope, out there of people doing this effectively.
Well, right. That's.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, and all of this is always a matter of demonstrating the utility, and then not only just demonstrating, but them being hungry to see that, or to try it and say, I'm going to be able to be a more efficient teacher, be a more effective teacher, and whatever, and then have that be, as Jeff said, you can't
Right.
just by me telling you will be doesn't necessarily mean you'll feel it. But some things that we've talked about a lot here, and I work with the Chicago Foundation for Education, which is all about teachers teaching teachers, and so for example, this summer I'm working with a group of teachers where one is the study group leader, and they're going to work on some type of module that they're going to integrate. This one's not integrating technology, but they're integrating some other strategy or method they want to try. And it just seems time and time again that it's coming from the teachers, the groundswell of interest and support and people and that you trust, and it's worked for them being the cheerleaders versus the top-down. That just seems to be what works better in the long, to get people to really buy in. But do you have any of those types of things figured out? Almost like your ed camp, only at your school level.
Right, and we do. We've got some. We're building excitement. I think the good news is going into this year is that people are, at least my sense of it, is that people are excited about coming back and doing new things. And that wasn't the case last year, or actually the last couple years. We've had a couple difficult years with new evaluation systems and new contracts and new testing, Common Core, lots of things that teachers are feeling like they're just being bashed all the time, and people are throwing new things at them, or really this huge perception that schools are doing too well, so we need to find new ways to measure schools so that they can look like they suck more than they do, which is very real and happening in American schools. So we've been beaten down a lot over the last couple of years, and I guess the good news is going into this year, there's more optimism, there's more good stuff, more willingness for people to move forward and try to break new ground and do some fun stuff. So I'm excited and optimistic, which is a good place to be.
Oh, wow, that won't last. You haven't gone back to work yet.
Well, yeah, right.
Talk on Friday.
You guys have kind of reversed roles here. John's all, optimistic, and Jen's all, that's not going to work.
He's been off of work for a month, right?
That's right. Good. And you've been where?
Pretty much everywhere, right?
Did you want to tell us about your trip to Canada?
They were awesome. I got to hang out with the Rick Schweers of the world and the Jay Wilsons. Then I did like a more traditional 600 or so, and then last week was like a small cohort of like 25, 30 people, and so kind of across the board, different types of experiences, but very invigorating.
How was Jennifer Madrill Day up in Canada?
Oh yeah, that was fun. No, I had Jennifer Madrill Day, but it was very fun. We went to, when I went up to the University of Saskatchewan, it was their summer studio, and so I had, like you said, I guess that's what you're referring to. I had day one, and yeah, it was great. We got to talk about ways to incorporate experiential learning and authentic learning opportunities, and with a bunch of kindred spirits. And I think I mentioned Rick Schweer retired, and Jay Wilson has taken over the reins. And he's a cool guy, equally cool. As you know, I love Rick, so we should get Jay on sometime too and get him to chat with us. But Jeffy, we didn't get to talk about can we do that next Sunday, and you can tell us how
Given that, it sounds like John had sort of a productive, refreshing few weeks off. I have binge-watched Battlestar Galactica, which has been wonderful.
That's awesome.
Wait, in which language?
In English.
No, come on, Jeff.
And I've given some thought to my courses coming up, but yeah, we can discuss that another time.
And you start officially when, Jeff?
I start next week, but it's returning. I'm finishing up last semester for the next several weeks, and then I start a new semester in September.
Oh, okay. So you don't start the new semester until September?
Correct. So the stuff I'm kind of wrapping my brain around starts.
He stopped in the middle of his old semester.
Yeah, what happened? What happened there?
My teacher trainees go to Australia for
suspension is over, and Jeff's allowed to go back to work now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so you'll still be grading papers and doing all that from the prior semester, you mean?
I don't grade papers.
What do you do? How do you assess? I'd love to see the Jeff Lebo assessment rubric.
Because I'm teaching conversation and various aspects of language usage for the most part in papers.
So you grade them on continuing the conversation.
Yes,
Continuing the
exactly.
conversation. Do they all have to become webcasters by the end of the semester?
No, they have that's a prerequisite.
Well, that's one of the things I'm contemplating because I'm teaching some advanced undergrads. I'm also teaching storytelling, a graduate school course on storytelling, and so I've been catching up. I've been learning a lot about storytelling and expanding. You know, it's always been taught as like, okay, let's tell a story from a storybook kind of thing, and
Right.
storytelling is so much more than that. So I've been learning about structure of stories and how to tell a good story. And there's a great storytelling MOOC I've been learning from. So I'll get back to
I
you
would
on
think
that.
Paul Allison would be a
All right.
for that. I would imagine.
He's a good resource for everything.
He is. He is a great resource for me.
Amen to
All
that.
right.
So
we
are
finished our
we back?
half hour. Excellent.
Let's wrap this up. Yep.
Well, are we back next week?
Yep. I'm good.
Sure. But maybe. Whatever.
Well, you're not going to be in the wilderness or on a plane or.
I will probably
Jennifer?
have been in the I will probably have been in the wilderness prior to the show, but I will be here by 7 Central. Yeah.
Right on. All right, 2 weeks in a row. Sounds good.
Awesome. Hey, and one last note before we leave. I have new neighbors. So for those who are keeping
Yay.
score,
Yay! That's the best thing we've said about the whole time we've been on.
we haven't met them yet, so I don't know if they might be crazy, but you know,
You know
they
what?
can't be more crazy.
Well, you don't say never. Never say never, John, but let's hope not. All right. Ta-ta for now, guys.
Have a
See you
great
next
week.
week. Bye-bye.
Bye.